Welcome to this screencast about Ockham's unique habitats and wildlife. This is the third video in a series about the Parish of Ockham in Surrey, England. As described in our first video, in 2012, a property development company based in the Cayman Islands purchased a plot of agricultural land in the heart of the Parish of Ockham. It now seeks to take this land out of London's green belt so that it can build houses on it for profit. Guildford Borough Council and the developer are proposing a new town. We think this site is completely unsuitable and that the proposal of the site in the draft local plan was highly improper and that such development would be wholly inappropriate and completely inconsistent with the concept of the green belt. This presentation focuses on the special habitats and rare wildlife found in and around Ockham Common. This slide sets out the subject matter we hope to cover in this screencast. First, the big picture. Naturally, we are all interested in the places in which we live, but it is important to put environmental change into context. 2. Our living, connected landscape. Try as we will to protect individual plots of land, we cannot escape the fact that everything is connected. No plot is an island which can survive regardless of what happens all around it. 3. The animals which share our parish. We've included videos of the plants, birds and insects which can be found on Ockham Common. 4. The legal protections for the wildlife. We set out aspects of the law applicable to the Special Protection Area. 5. Suitable Alternative Natural Green Space, or SANGS. We set out some of the rules governing the provision of suitable alternative natural green space. And 6. The developer's proposed new town. We make some observations on the Cayman Islands developers' proposals. The big picture, human beings and nature. Populations of animals are controlled by the availability of the suitable habitats and energy, i.e. food. Since human beings discovered fossil fuels, i.e. coal, gas and oil, human population growth has disconnected from its local environment and food sources. As human population grows, natural habitats for animals have shrunk. This is not sustainable. Human population growth. A little over 100 years ago, in 1900, there were 2 billion people on the planet. Now there are over 7 billion people. That's a near fourfold increase in the space of just one lifetime. Population is expected to grow by a further 30% by 2050. We now live in what biologists call the age of Holocene extinction. This is a phase of extinctions of species driven almost entirely by human activity. Up to 20% of all living populations could become extinct by 2028. The rate of extinction may be 140,000 species per year. Some groups are going extinct much faster. Amphibians, for example, are disappearing at as much as 45,000 times their background or historic extinction rate. Ockham Common. During the 1970s, before the significance of the habitat was well understood, some pine plantations were planted on part of the common. Since then, management of the commons has been taken on by the Surrey Wildlife Trust, and it began a programme of restoration in the 1990s. The commons cover some 800 acres of heath and woodland. Just how rare and precious is this habitat? All these quotes come from Surrey Wildlife Trust literature. Quote, "Even rarer than rainforest, heathland is one of our most threatened habitats. 20% of all the world's lowland heathland is found in the UK. Surrey has lost 85% of its heaths in the last 200 years. Those that remain are an internationally important habitat. Lowland heath is home to a distinctive and diverse range of plants and animals and provides a unique cultural and recreational resource. The range of conditions associated with lowland heath, from dense heather and lichen heath to acid grassland, supports an extraordinarily rich variety of wildlife, including a staggering 5,000 species of invertebrates. Recent research indicates that as much as 15% is still being lost every decade, and that over 75% of remaining heathland is in poor condition. We are now including some third-party video to show you some of what exists on Ockham Common.
Hello and welcome to another Surrey Wildlife Trust video. My name's James Hearn and today I'm joining Gemma Hayes, who's the ranger of this fantastic reserve behind us, Wisley Common and Ockham and Chatley Heaths. Gemma, give us a bit of an introduction into what this place is and where it is as well.
Thanks, James. Yes, you are stood right now on 800 acres of designated SSSI and SPA, mainly because of our lowlands, heathlands behind me. We've got a bit of woodland, a freshwater lake and some wildflower meadows too.
We're in the heart of the heath now, having a closer look at the habitat in detail, and it's this habitat, Gemma, that helps give the reserve some of the designations that it's got, isn't it? Things like SSSI.
Absolutely, yes.
What are those designations? What do they mean?
So SSSI is a site of special scientific interest, and it's basically designated because lowland heathland is such a rare habitat. For example, the UK has lost 85% of lowland heathland in the past 200 years, so it's quite a rare habitat now, and obviously the wildlife that depends on this habitat is also in decline too, so it's a really important thing to manage and keep alive. So it's quite special, as it's quite unusual to have such a large body of water on sands and gravels.
So given that it's unusual, does it attract any particular wildlife or some real sort of stars of the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a whole host of dragonflies here, which is spectacular to watch. But my favourite behind us are the birds. So we've got terns and goldeneye and hobbies feeding across the lake.
Yeah, hobbies, great source of food, the dragonflies are the hobbies. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Gemma, we're on the Wisley Common side now of your site, but why have you got cows grazing out in here? What's their job out here?
It's brilliant. We've got 25 lovely belted Galloway cattle grazing here, and it's basically to manage the habitat for me during the summer. They're grazing between April and September. It's to create a different variety of ages and structures of vegetation.
Just how rare is the wildlife on Ockham Common? Perhaps you believe that the wildlife will fend for itself. Perhaps you worry that some species, like the Dartford warbler, are mythological creatures invented by environmental campaigners to prevent development. We discussed some of these issues with Surrey Wildlife Trust. Take the Dartford warbler. There are currently none on these commons. They all died following a hard winter around 2011 and 2012. How many were there? There were previously only 2 breeding pairs. In future, it's hoped that some will migrate from the population on Ockham Common. Take nightjars. We were told that there were plenty of nightjars. When we asked what that meant, we were told that meant approximately 6 breeding pairs. That didn't sound a lot, but we were told that that was near the capacity of the habitat. All of this indicates that these commons are a tiny fleck of rare habitat on an ocean of suburban sprawl and other countryside. They need and deserve protection. The executive of Guildford Borough Council claims to speak for the silent majority. The real silent majority in the borough is the wildlife, which in our political system has no vote. The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds classifies birds which it considers endangered. Its classification is based on objective counts and studies. The Red List is a list of birds whose UK breeding population has declined by at least 1/2 in the last 25 years. The Amber List is a list of birds whose UK breeding population has declined by between 1/4 and 50% in the past 25 years. This is a list taken from Surrey Wildlife Trust of some of the wildlife on Ockham Common. A good way of understanding this is to see some video, which follows. Thank you to all those who've provided this video on YouTube and have taken the trouble to record for other people the rare and special wildlife.
So here is our second type of heather. This is called bell heather. It's quite self-explanatory because the flowers have got this sort of inflated bell shape to them. This is very, very much an indicator of dry heathland. You won't find it on the damper soils at all, and in fact it often occurs around the edge of car parks and in really sort of parched places. Each flower has got this sort of bell shape to it. It's very inflated. And even when they've gone over towards the end of the year and have gone brown, they still retain this sort of swollen shape to it, which makes it very different from the normal heather. The leaves of bell heather are again very distinctive. They're very different from the other heathers. They're almost like a sort of conifer tree. They're quite spaced out and very needle-like individually. Now if you compare that with the leaves of the normal heather we were looking at before, you can see it's very, very different. Normal heather almost gives the impression it's in bud and it's about to become something much larger, but in fact that's all it ever does, and it will senesce and die in exactly that structure. So side by side you can hopefully see that bell heather with the much more pointy leaves and normal heather with the bunched up leaves are extremely different.
Oh, look, right over the top. Oh, one just flew by.
It's female because it's got no white spots in the primaries there. There's nothing in the tail, no spots in the tail there.
How heavy is this female?
It's about 60 or 70 grams usually.
How heavy is a starling?
About the same, yeah. It's about the same size as a starling, but it's about much longer wings. It looks much bigger.
Can we see the wing?
But, yes.
Look at that! So here we are, we've got a bird that's the weight of a starling, but it's got wings about the same length as a male sparrowhawk, which is a significantly beefier bird.
If we can get it to open its mouth...
Look at the gape on it!
That's how they catch their moths.
That's astonishing. And these brilliant bristles either side of the beak, they extend the trap, don't they, effectively?
Yeah.
Yeah, they increase the capture area. And if you look at them, they'll fold forwards very easily. If you press back on them, they resist.
Can I try that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow! Absolutely rigid. So the bristles move down gently so that you can groom and keep them clean. Go that way, and they absolutely stop. It's almost like they're on a hinge.
Yeah, that's correct.
Clearly see the cone claw, which is serrated and used to clean these extraordinary bristles. Of course, get lucky with scales from moth wings and bug juice. Oh, I feel sorry for her now. She wants to go and get some moths. We better put a ring on her.
great crested newt is the largest of our native newt species, and as such it is also the most exacting in its water requirements. So if you find a thriving great crested newt population breeding in a pond, you can be pretty sure that the pond is of incredibly good water quality, and there'll be a host of other species benefits. I think what's absolutely critical from the newt point of view is that everyone thinks of great crested newts as pond creatures. They're actually not. They do part of their life cycle in the pond, but an awful lot of their life is dependent upon really nice grassland full of insects and slugs and things they can eat, hedges that connect the different ponds, and so it's the management of the terrestrial habitat that is also so important. Right, well, I've got a large female great crested newt here. I know she's not a male because she hasn't got a jagged crest down her back, but actually if you get the male out it flops over anyway. And she's large, she's grainy, dark looking, and there's no mistaking that she's a great crested female full of eggs. She's got this lovely orange and splotched, spotted underbelly, which of course smooth newts have as well, which can cause some confusion, but it's her size that means you should never muddle her up with a smooth newt. What I've got here is a male great crested newt, and you can see that his crest has actually flopped over when I take him out of the water, and he's the other diagnostic feature really about him is he has a stripe in the middle of his tail, a white stripe, and he puts to great effect underwater as he shimmies around the female at courting time, and he lashes it and shivers it, and you see this white tail flicking around. He also has the very grainy skin with white sort of granular looking effect, and if I lift him up underneath he's got that same blotchy orange, bright red orange stomach and gonads at the back, and now he's flashing his tail because he's a little bit angry with me. And you can see his crest has flopped over on this side. He's blowing a bit in the wind there. Okay, well this little chap, I think he needs to get back in the water.
National planning policy specifically provides for the protection of wildlife. The National Planning Policy Framework at paragraph 119 states, "The presumption in favour of sustainable development does not apply where development requiring appropriate assessment under the Birds or Habitats Directives is being considered, planned or determined." At paragraph 118 it states, "When determining planning applications, local or planning authorities should aim to conserve and enhance biodiversity by applying the following principles. Proposed development on land within or outside a site of special scientific interest likely to have an adverse effect on a site of special scientific interest, either individually or in combination with other developments, should not normally be permitted. Where an adverse effect on the site's notified special interest features is likely, an exception should only be made where the benefits of the development at this site clearly outweigh both the impacts that it is likely to have on the features of the site that make it of special scientific interest and any broader impacts on the national network of sites of special scientific interest." This is a map of Ockham Common produced by Surrey County Council. The dominant feature of the map is the road network. The A3 and the M25 at this point are 6-lane motorways, not including the 2-lane slip roads on either side. These roads make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for mammals to cross from one part of the common into another. This plan shows the special protection area in pink to the north. No building is allowed within 400 metres of a special protection zone. The 400-metre limit is shown on this plan by the blue line to the south of the pink area. Note that the blue line covers some 30 or 40% of the plot of agricultural land known as Three Farms Meadow, also known as the former Wisley Airfield. Special protection areas are protected by limiting the amount of development that can take place around them. No building is allowed to take place within 400 metres of a special protection area. Between 400 metres and 5 kilometres, building may only take place if action is taken to mitigate the effect of the building. A key form of mitigation is the creation of a SANG, or a suitable accessible natural green space. The role of a SANG is to provide alternative green space to divert visitors from visiting the Thames Basin Heath's Special Protection Area. A SANG is intended to mitigate the potential impact of residential development on the SPA by preventing an increase in visitor pressure on the SPA. These are the guidelines on this slide. They state that the identification of SANGs should seek to avoid sites of high nature conservation value which are likely to be damaged by increased visitor numbers. Such damage may arise, for example, from increased disturbance, erosion, input of nutrients from dog feces, and increased incidence of fires. This plan is taken from the Guildford Borough Council Draft Local Plan. The Special Protection Area is to the north. The plan shows the site owned by the Cayman Islands Property Development Company. The site is divided into two colours. The pink colour is the area that they expect to be able to build 2,100 houses on. The green area is within the 400-metre exclusion zone around the SPA. No building can take place on the green area. Notwithstanding this, the developer wishes to turn this green area to its advantage. It describes it as a country park for the benefit of the people living in the new town. These paragraphs are taken from the developer's website. It states, "We are creating a major new country park open to all. Over 50% of the site will be publicly accessible green areas linked to the community by green corridors, public squares, landscaped footpaths, and bridleways. This site is within the exclusion zones around the SPA. The SANG is intended to divert the public away from the wildlife inside the SPA. The developer does not have access to a SANG, so it has decided to create a SANG on its own land. To do this, it has designated the part of its property falling within the 400-metre exclusion zone, within which it cannot build, as a SANG. It is very difficult to reconcile the creation of a major new country park open to all, immediately next door to the SPA, with the objective of SANGs, which is to divert the public away from the SPA. Does the Planning Department of Guildford Borough Council consider development so close to an SPA to be appropriate? There is another site next door to the same SPA. It is site number 25 in the Issues and Options paper issued in 2013 by Guildford Borough Council. That site is owned by the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society. This slide shows the relevant paragraphs from the Issues and Options document for site number 25. It is stated that, quotes, "This is not a suitable site for housing due to its current use as a historic park and garden, and it is in the green belt, away from other housing. New housing would be reliant on motor vehicles for transport. New housing is unlikely to be suitable due to the proximity of the Thames Basin Heath SPA. In addition to the above, to provide large amounts of affordable housing in one location is not in conformity with national planning policy, which promotes a mix of types and tenures of housing." That was the Planning Department's opinion about site number 25. However, site number 66 is literally scarcely 100 yards away on the other side of the A3, and that site has been considered suitable for inclusion inside the draft local plan as a site for a whole new town. It would appear that different sides of the road have different rules. There are two sites of nature conservation interest in Ockham. The roles of SNCIs are, among other things, to provide wildlife refuges for fauna and flora, to complement other site networks through their connecting and buffering qualities, to represent local character distinctiveness, and to contribute to the quality of life and the well-being of the community. The reasons given for the Ockham SNCIs are as follows. The former Wisley Airfield SNCI quotes, "The site has an exceptional or good population of a number of reptiles and amphibians. 3 RSPB red list bird species and 7 RSPB amber list bird species have been recorded on the site. 9 notable Surrey plant species have been recorded on the site." Elm Corner Woods SNCI quotes, The site is selected due to its position within the ecological unit. It is contiguous with the Ockham and Wisley Common SSSI and Wisley Airfield SNCI. It acts as a continuation of the habitat and will act as a buffer to the SSSI. This plan shows the former Wisley Airfield SNCI. The entire airfield was recommended for designation as an SNCI. However, to date, only the western third of the airfield is an SNCI. It's shown on this plan, enclosed by the red line. This plan shows the Elm Corner Woods SNCI in green. Thank you for watching. This video has given some background information about the habitats and wildlife in the parish of Ockham. The consultation period for the draft local plan is open until the 22nd of September 2014. If you believe that it is not appropriate to build a new town next door to the wildlife on Ockham Common, please make your views known to Guildford Borough Council.